Mm-hmm.
Cardinals scored in the first inning. We are stuck at one with Alex Reyes.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show as we start your day off on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network, Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Hall of Fame legendary boxing writer Jack Hirsch, bringing you Sports Breakfast live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Today's guest, Jack, we have on NHL expert Carter B., and we also have New York Giants expert broadcaster Lance Meadow joining us around the 9 o'clock hour. How are you doing, Jack?
Good. Looking forward to today's show.
Me too, Jack. I just showed a little home video of the Dodgers with their walk-off home run versus the Cardinals, one of the hottest teams in baseball. And what a game that was, huh?
Yeah, what a game it was. And, there's a certain poetic justice in the Dodger victory. I know they were a wild card team, but when you're a wild card team that's won 105 games, the only reason they didn't win the division because the San Francisco Giants had a truly miracle-type year. So good for the Dodgers advancing. In a way, it would have been a shame for the Dodgers to get knocked out of a one-game playoff after winning 105 games. But that's the luck in the draw. That's the way the system is set up. But the Dodgers advanced. They played the Giants, and you kind of won the match. By the time the Dodgers and Giants get done beating up on one another, the winner of the Atlanta Brave-Milwaukee Brewers series, they might benefit by that because it's such an emotional series, Dodgers against Giants. You put everything you have into it. What does the team have left when it's over?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jack. And I mean, listen, it was a lot better game than the game 2 nights ago where Boston just beat the Yankees 6-2. Cole had a bad night. The bullpen couldn't do its job and keep them down. And the Red Sox, listen, we both made predictions in the beginning of the year. You saying that the Yankees would get in the last day of the playoffs right on the spot. And I told everybody that could hear me, and they all made fun of me, Jack, that Boston would be there during the end. So both predictions, Jack, came true in that.
Yeah, I got to give you kudos for that, Mac. I thought when you said early in the year Boston was going to, at the very least, hang in till the very end. I told you, I think, as late back as May, they're going to be done come All-Star break in July. They're going to be out of it. They're going to just be a distant memory come September. And there they were. They hung in all the way. They were resilient. They got the first playoff spot, edged the Yankees out at the very end to get the one-game playoff at Fenway Park. Not that it would have mattered whether it would have been at Yankee Stadium or not. I don't think that would have made any difference at all. And here the Red Sox are. They're advancing. They're playing the Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay, I think, is going to be heavily favored in that series. But you count the Red Sox out at your own risk. I mean, at this point, you better take them pretty seriously.
Yeah, and Jack, we also made a couple predictions at the beginning of the year as far as who would make the World Series. It's not too late to change your predictions if you want, Jack. We'll give you we'll have like a wipe your slate clean thing, but I'm sticking with mine. I picked Milwaukee and the Houston Astros to meet in the World Series, and they're both good enough to get there and both good enough to win it, Jack.
Hey, guess what? Both of my predictions are still alive. I picked the Atlanta Braves over the Chicago White Sox, and I'm sticking with that, Mac. You want to know why? Atlanta plays well against Milwaukee traditionally. I think they beat Milwaukee in this series. Dodgers and Giants, tough call, but I'm going with the Dodgers to beat the Giants. Dodgers have some injuries. Muncy's out. Clayton Kershaw's out for the rest of the season. I think Atlanta beats the Dodgers this time around. They nearly beat them last year. People forget Atlanta was up 3-1, and they lost eventually by 1 run in the 7th game. They came within a hair of beating the Dodgers last year, and I think they're going to get it done this year. In the American League, I have to like Tampa over Boston, in all due respect to the Red Sox over there. And then I like the White Sox to beat the Astros, and then I like the White Sox to beat the Rays and the Braves to beat the White Sox. So I'm sticking with my beginning of the season prediction. The Atlanta Braves over the Chicago White Sox in the World Series. I can tell you who won't be happy about that. The television people who have to look at the TV ratings. I can't imagine America tuning in with such anticipation to an Atlanta Braves Chicago White Sox World Series. Those aren't exactly the glamour teams like the Dodgers would be.
Good morning, David. Yeah, Jack thinks Atlanta's going to beat Chicago in the World Series. Me, on the other hand, listen, I think that San Francisco Giants will beat the Dodgers. And I think San Fran will go on to play Milwaukee, who will take care of Atlanta probably in less than 5 games. And I just like Milwaukee's team. It's solid. It's been solid every year. So I like Milwaukee getting there. And then in the American League, Tampa Bay and Boston is going to be a lot closer than people think. It's just because of the manager. And I think that, Houston going against Chicago, I think Houston's more talented than Chicago. Houston, whether they play Tampa Bay or the Red Sox, Tampa Bay has no fan support there at all. I mean, I feel bad for the Rays. The Rays have done a great job every year, but I think the Astros go back to say, hey, you think we got to cheat to win? I don't think so. So I like the Astros going to Milwaukee winning it all.
It's funny what you say about Tampa Bay. I mentioned this in the past show. I asked a buddy of mine the popularity of the teams in Tampa. He told me the Buccaneers, Super Bowl champs with Tom Brady, by far are the most popular team. They're wildly popular in Tampa. But the Tampa Bay Lightning are actually more popular than the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, in all due respect to the Lightning, they've won back-to-back Stanley Cups, okay? But the Rays aren't exactly chopped liver. They went to the World Series last year. Yeah. They're not like a miracle team coming out of nowhere. They went to the World Series last year, won 100 games this year. I kind of wonder if the Rays go on a run during the playoffs here and they win the World Series, what's going to be their degree of popularity? I can't imagine them in Tampa, passing the Bucks. But it's funny. I sometimes think about cities. They like to call themselves Titletown, USA. If the city of Tampa has the Buccaneers, the Lightning, and the Rays all as champions at the same time, that's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I mean, but look at the city. You pick Milwaukee to win it. Green Bay is considered Milwaukee's team. They consider it their team. So could you imagine the Bucks, the Brewers, and then Aaron Rodgers and the Packers get it done this year? I mean, they're alive. Unlike New York here. I mean, football, we're far away from any Super Bowl contender. We're far away from even being a better than 500 team having. Baseball barely got a team in the Yankees on a thread into the playoffs. Hockey, the Islanders are pretty good, haven't quite gotten over the top yet. And basketball, the Brooklyn Nets and New York's, great hope. But with all the teams we have here in New York, we don't quite get it done. Look, Philadelphia, at least the Eagles won the Super Bowl a few weeks back. And Boston's had that great, you could call it a dynasty run with the Patriots. Look, the Red Sox have won 4 World Series in the last, 20 years here. Patriots have won their share of Super Bowls. I think the Celtics won an NBA title, the Bruins. So, some cities are a lot healthier than others, and some are starving for winners, absolutely starving.
I agree. And Dave, we're going to get into the Yankees a lot heavier. We've got Carter coming on, and probably right after the Carter thing, we're going to get into the Yankees, the Red Sox, and what my thoughts are and what Jack's thoughts are. Normally they're a little different, but we're both doing it because we love the Yankees. We're both Yankee fans. So we'll get to that probably after Carter. He's due to come in at any time. Jack, in the NFL real quick, Carter, say the name and Carter comes in. So we're going to get to a little bit of MLB and NFL. We'll have Lance Meadow coming in talking about the Giants. But right now, folks, we got our hockey update right now with our expert, Carter Bedeving. And let's bring in Carter B and see what's going on. How you doing, Carter?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Not too bad, Carter. Not too bad at all. I mean, preseason has started, so hockey has officially got it going. We're going to be coming up on the regular season here pretty soon. There's a few big stories in hockey I want to get to you with. There's a goalie for Las Vegas. Let me get him. Of course, the Golden Knights, Robin Lanier. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. He had a Twitter tirade about the way the NHL and the NHL Players Association deals with mental health and physical injury situations, right? I guess he says he claims to have bipolar, and then he went right to the Buffalo Sabres handling of Eichel and the dispute over the surgery on the vertebrae. Eichel fails the physical, gets his captainship stripped from him, and the goalie really had a lot to say. He had so much to say that the NHL officials are having a meeting with him. Carter, do you agree that maybe the NHL, even the Players Association, isn't doing enough to represent the players when it comes to their health in the NHL?
I don't know if I'd say that. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I didn't see a ton of the comments that Leonard had made. I saw a little bit of what he said about Eichel, but outside of that, I hadn't really seen a whole lot of it. So, I'd have to see more of us to make a. But at the end of the day, though, I mean, the Players Association does all they can to make sure all the players are represented in a fair and adequate manner. And with the whole Leonard situation, I mean, it's he's always been someone who's never been afraid to be open-minded about what he thinks. And I can't say I necessarily blame him for talking out about the Eichel situation. I would do the same thing if I were a fellow player and one of my peers was being disrespected like that. So again, I'd have to see more comments before I'd make a
Carter, but is it really
a legitimate comment on it for now?
Is it really his business to speak up on it? He's playing for Las Vegas. Eichel's with Buffalo. Does he really know what's going on behind the scenes?
Absolutely, he knows what's going on behind the scenes. He used to play for the Buffalo Sabres. He used to be Eichel's teammate in Buffalo. So,
but used to be. He's not currently with the Sabres to know what's the talks and what the latest is going on. Unless Eichel has spoken with him on the phone, has vented a little, and he doesn't want to throw Eichel's name out there.
No, I still think they have contact with each other. I mean, they've played together for a couple seasons in Buffalo, especially when Eichel was a younger player. So Leonard knows what kind of a player Eichel is. And considering they won't let him get the surgery he wants, that, the game's taking Jack Eichel's skill away from not just the Buffalo Sabres as a team, but from the fans as well. He's one of the most electrifying players to watch in the league. So absolutely, I think it's Robin Lehner's business.
Shouldn't the surgery have been done a while ago after, last season once he was out so he could have been ready for this season? I mean, why is it lagging on?
If I had an answer for that, I would tell you. I don't know. I don't think Buffalo wants Eichel to get the surgery that he wants, because even though the recovery rate would probably be better than the surgery that the Sabres want him to get, there's really been no players that have gotten it in the NHL. If you look at the type of injury that Eichel has and the other details like that. So it's definitely a messy situation in Buffalo, but from what I've heard so far, they're looking they are looking hard for a trade, obviously. They're letting other teams kind of view Eichel's medical history for the first time in this whole situation. And there are reportedly other teams out there that'll let Eichel get the surgery that he wants if he does get traded. So
Mac, you could comment on this too. This is something that's never discussed. Shouldn't the athlete be in charge of himself if he wants to get surgery? It's as if the team owns him, telling him when you could get surgery, when you can't. It's his body. Any athlete, if he feels he needs surgery, should just be able to go out and get it, but they're scared to, because supposedly it's in the contract. They'd then be voiding the contract and not be getting their money. I mean, shouldn't that policy perhaps change, not just in hockey and Eichel's situation, but in all the sports?
Well, let me give you my opinion before Carter does, because I've really been watching this, especially with Eichel. Listen, Eichel wants to get surgery, as Carter said, and Buffalo's kind of been kind of pushing it away, saying that maybe he doesn't need treatment at all, which is crazy to me. Okay, I don't think the NHLPA is a strong union as opposed to baseball and in basketball. NFL somewhere in the middle there. Look, there's an injury there, and he needs to get it operated on. And I don't think any players' association would not go to bat for this guy. Besides the National Hockey League Players Association, I think they haven't come out strong enough and said something. I really believe that, because they're supposed to be representing players in baseball. If something like this happened, the guy would already had a surgery. And basketball, the guy would already had his surgery. There's no doubt about it. And they would have been filing grievances, and they would have been taking the MLB and the NBA to court. They would have done that already. But the NHLPA is not as strong as these other two. They're more have a very working relationship with the NHL, which kind of puts them at a disadvantage as far as what the players go. I think that surgery, if needed, like in Eichel's case, yes, the player has every right. If it's some kind of elective surgery, then that's where it gets a little sticky, right? Because, I mean, if you don't need surgery, for instance, you don't need Tommy John surgery, what the doctors say, and I think it should be independent doctors also, not just the team's doctors, says you don't need it, then that becomes a surgery of choice. If you need it, there's no question in my mind that the player has every right to get that surgery. None. Eichel needs that surgery. Not just for his playing career, but for his health period. Suppose something else hits his back. I mean, this is all nuts to me. So right now, the NHLPA should be filing grievances and lawsuits against the Buffalo Sabres. There's no doubt in my mind they should be doing that. What do you think, Carter?
I mean, I think for the most part, this is going to sound crazy, but I don't think this is a matter that the NHLPA really has control over. And I say that because there's a clause in the current collective bargaining agreement that the league signed that basically, I'm going to sum it up for you guys, that it basically says that the teams have last word on medical situations like this. That's not the way it should be. I don't agree with that, that reasoning. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to, side with Eichel on the situation. I'm siding with Eichel myself. But at the end of the day, though, technically the Sabres do have the last word on the matter. that's not the way it should be. I think at one point in time there was a thought that, that Eichel wouldn't need surgery, that this would all just kind of blow over. You could let it heal naturally, and you could just, forget about it and have him ready to play for the start of the season. That's not how it's turned out. He needs a form of surgery. Now it just depends on who budges, whether Eichel gets the surgery he wants or the Sabres are going to be, stubborn and kind of force him to get the surgery that they want. So it really is a messy situation that we've never really seen before, not just in hockey, but in all sports.
Card, I think situations differ. We agree that Eichel is a superstar type player. Okay, he fits into that category. Let's say, unlike a lesser player who'd be scared about having his contract voided, he might have a hard time getting as good a deal with another team. Let's say Eichel hypothetically said, screw you to the Sabres. I'm getting the surgery. I'm doing it on my own. They can then void his contract. But guess what? Eichel could sign a lucrative deal elsewhere. And there'd be at least one team that would step up and give him the type of money he wanted if he became a free agent. So Eichel could call their bluff. He's not going to get frozen out and not have a lucrative deal somewhere else.
Yeah, Jack, I think if that were a legitimate option, I think he would have done it by now. I think obviously Eichel and his camp are frustrated with the whole, with this whole situation, as they should be. But, at the end of the day, though, this isn't really about voiding Eichel's contract. I mean, if Eichel goes behind the Sabres' back and does something like that, the Sabres have every right to be able to sue him and do any, take any type of legal action they want. This sounds crazy that I'm actually bringing all of this up over a surgery that, that Eichel needs to get better. You figure Buffalo would want to just let him get the surgery that he wants,
right?
Just so you could have your superstar, your former captain anyway, your face of your franchise being able to play and, helping out a team that can barely make the playoffs without him as it is.
Right. This is a bad look, Carter. It's a bad look. It's a bad look for the Sabres right now. Real bad look.
Yeah, I've lost a lot of respect for that horrendous franchise. So I don't have anything more to say on that. Let's talk about something else.
Let's go to the Capitals become the first team to make some room on their jerseys for ads, for sponsorship. And right now, it looks like, let me see if I can get the right place. It's Caesars Sports Book Deal has signed a contract with the Capitals. Do you agree with this, Carter? I mean, do you agree that there should be ads on actual jerseys of the teams? And if so or not, where does it end? Do we start looking at them like the race car drivers with patches all over their uniforms?
No, they've already come out and said that, this would be the furthest that they go in terms of jersey patches. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I really don't. I don't have a huge problem with it. I'm not a big fan of jersey patches, with ads on them in general. But, I think one of the things that they wanted to try and do was, you look at the jersey patches that they have in the NBA. Those are relatively small. I mean, those are, in the top, I think the top left or right shoulder on their jerseys, I believe, or they're closer to the chest, I should say. And, they're pretty, they're small. They're not too, they don't take away from the look of the jersey. And I think that's what the NHL wants. And with the Capitals, they chose a sports betting company, which, could be smart depending on if sports betting, is legalized, everywhere soon. Like I said, I'm not going to mind it too much unless it, unless a team decides to do like 2 or 3 different ads, which I don't think will happen. I think there's only a limit of 1, but I'll have to double check on that.
Okay, we're talking about the Capitals. Ovechkin signed a 5-year deal last year. He has 730 career goals to Wayne Gretzky's 894. In about 3 years, as long as Ovechkin can keep playing at the pace he is, he's going to be seriously approaching Gretzky's record, maybe 4 years, 5 years. But if he can keep playing at a high level, which is going to be tough, he's age 36, but Gordie Howe showed it could be done. How big is that going to be for hockey? as he's getting close to Gretzky's record. If indeed he gets close, 164, that's a lot of goals. But if he could play at a high level for a few years, there's already talk about Ovechkin with Gretzky's record. I mean, how big is that going to be for hockey moving forward?
Oh, it'll be huge. I mean, it's been such a long time since anybody's been able to, score at a relatively similar pace to what Gretzky put up. And, I think if Ovechkin can break Gretzky's record, it'll be great for, for the current generation of hockey fans because, personally, I didn't get to see Wayne Gretzky play. So Ovechkin is the best goal scorer that I've ever seen. Right. So, it would definitely be cool to see him break Gretzky's record. I think he has a legitimate shot to do it. Whether or not he actually does, I guess remains to be seen. But I guess we'll have to kind of wait and see how it all plays out.
The NHL and the NHLPA, they're going to let the players play in the Olympics and actually put a break in the season to accommodate the teams and stuff. I think it's a great idea, Carter. I don't know if baseball could do it because of the 162 games. I'm sure basketball could do it if they wanted to. But what's your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a good idea to let these guys leave the team, go play in Olympics, possibly get hurt? It could happen. Or, or something happens over there. Do you think it's a good idea, though? I think it is. How about you?
I go back and forth on it, to be honest. I mean, I've definitely missed NHL players, playing internationally for the Olympics. I do think it makes it, more entertaining to watch. But I think at the end of the day, you always run the risk of getting hurt, right? Realistically speaking, even though you don't think about it very much, you run the risk of getting hurt with pretty much any physical activity that you do, right? A player can get hurt working out or playing pregame soccer. That's what happened with one of the Islander players last year before a game. So, realistically speaking, I don't think anybody's really thinking about what kind of injury could happen. You never really do. But, I think a lot of players are excited about the Olympics. They're all excited to be able to, to prove what they can bring to the table in the first few months of the regular season that can really, bolster their chances of playing for their country come February. So, again, I go back and forth, but for now, I'll say I'm for it.
Claude, isn't there a little bit unfairness here that for the star players, they don't get the 2 weeks off? They're playing in the Olympics. As soon as the Olympics end, they got to get back to work. Shouldn't there be a clause put in where anyone plays in the Olympics is given at least 1 week off after the Olympics when their team resumes? We know it's not going to work that way, and there's got to be a little resentment, like the wear and tear on the star guys, all the mental pressure to travel to play in the Olympics, and the Olympics end, and there they are back playing, not getting the break that their lesser skilled teammates are getting.
I guess, again, I don't think that's something that the star players are really thinking about, maybe it can.
They're thinking about it, Carter. They're thinking about time off, and they're probably mumbling the Olympics, and they got to get back to work and play immediately, and they don't have a chance to recharge.
Again, I think that's secondary if they're thinking about it all. It's been 8 years since the NHL's been able to participate. I think everybody's just focused on trying to make it. So, that's really a matter if you make it or not. If you don't, then you have time to think about that. But if you really, care about the Olympics and you want to make your international team, you're doing everything you can to try and convince your team's GM that you should be there. So again, I think that's kind of a secondary thought right now.
Carter, of course, there are waiver dumps happening with all teams. Islanders dropped some players. Something about Valimore in there, too, about him not being on the roster. Any Islander news you got for us before we end the segment?
Not really. Their preseason's coming to an end soon, so, I'd expect more roster cuts to come soon. Season's right around the corner, so I guess we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens with these last two preseason games and who gets cut and who doesn't.
Who's your prediction to win the East, Carter?
Regular season or in the playoffs?
Regular season.
I'll say Carolina.
Ooh,
Pick the Hurricanes.
wow, look at that. That was surprising. That sounds great, Carter. Carter, the 2-0 hockey show, that coming back on soon, or are you guys getting ready?
Yeah, we should be. I mean, it's been a lot recently with starting up with school and work and all that other stuff. So we're hoping to have it up again sometime soon. But it's kind of up in the air right now, to be honest.
Okay. Well, we're looking forward for that to get back on, folks, as he comes in almost every Thursday. He's been fined for missing last week's show, so almost every Thursday, Carter comes.
He's got
on.
an injury, and we're debating what he should do. Carter's liking one thing, we're telling him the other. Yeah,
the contract is a little iffy.
He's got a contract with the Mac and Jack show, and we're telling him he can't take time off for that.
Right. So anyway, a pleasure as always, Carter. We love it when you come in and keep us a little smarter and keep us up to date with all the NHL news. You have a great day, and I can't wait for hockey season to start, Carter.
Thanks, guys. And you have my address. Just bill me to that, I guess. So.
I will, Carter. I will. Take it easy, my friend.
All right, guys. You too.
All right. So there you go, folks. Carter B with their NHL update. So a lot of big things going in hockey on the sidelines, Jack, with the patches and stuff. I don't know if I like that. I mean, I really don't know if I like that. I mean, I don't know. I guess they got to do something to raise more funds over there in the NHL. They just signed a big contract with ESPN. Hopefully that helps out. I don't know.
Well, let's see how ESPN presents hockey, whether they could get a lot of new fans. I would think that ESPN's going to try to be extremely creative. Listen, ESPN's having some problems with their NBA show.
Yeah.
I mean, they're matching Mike Greenberg, Stephen A. Smith, and Magic Johnson in their NBA countdown because ratings have been lagging. And if those guys can't get it done for the NBA, what's ESPN going to get done for hockey?
I don't know. That's a good question.
We need these YouTube guys in hockey,
Yeah,
just really long hair who are really flaky type guys who like to try, who have personalities. We get a whole new audience, and then they'll maybe tune in a lot of young people to the NHL. I'm joking, but I'm not joking. That's
I understand. I understand.
Personalities. You got it in boxing with the Jake Pauls and that, the YouTube guys. But,
oh my God, Jack.
Yeah.
Jack, let's talk a little bit. Let's hit on this really quick. Urban Meyer, it kind of makes another mistake, right? I mean, I don't know if he's just not thinking things through, or maybe the pressure's getting to him, or maybe, he's just a person that's in the wrong place, even though it was his place at the wrong time. And of course, the video goes viral of a young lady dancing provocatively in front of him while he's sitting on a chair, and I mean, Jack, when you become a professional coach and the media is all over you, I'm not sure a lot of college coaches realize what the job entails. Now, again, I don't think Urban Meyer really did anything wrong, except he was sitting there in his own restaurant, and either groupies or a bunch of people wanted to do something. But man, I mean, you gotta think about what you're doing, and the phones are everywhere. If something happens, you gotta at least have a response like, please stop and walk, something. And I don't think he's thinking that kind of stuff right now. And that's just another mistake he's made this year, Jack.
Well, Urban Meyer's made a number of mistakes, but all these people calling for him to be fired, maybe we should evaluate what they've done in their life, and I'm sure we could find something, and I'm going to then call for them to be fired. I mean, they're so perfect. Listen, Urban Meyer did not commit a criminal act.
Right.
He didn't walk over to a lady and grab her improperly, okay?
Right.
And these people calling to be fired, I mean, maybe, like I said, let's evaluate them. I'd like to look into their background, and I'm sure we could find something. You know what sometimes happens? Urban Meyer has had a lot of troubles this year. certain things people perceive. It's like he hired a strength and conditioning coach that had a questionable background. He basically fell asleep at the switch, Urban Meyer, with that. And then they looked at, he should have had a little more due diligence. That's all he was guilty of. And then the thing with Tim Tebow, they want to hold that against Urban Meyer. What was lost there? Tebow got caught. He had a lot of extra spaces. He could have brought in a guy from semi-pro football. He could have brought in you or I. Listen, years ago, what the Detroit Lions did back in the old days, there was a great writer, George Plimpton, okay? He wanted to write a story for Sports Illustrated. They let him, the Lion coach Joe Schmidt and the ownership, come into the Lion camp to play quarterback for a series. He was with the team. He survived the first cuts because he was writing a story for Sports Illustrated. So the Tebow thing, give him a pass on. The Trevor Lawrence move, having him compete with Minshew, who doesn't even have a roster spot now. Minshew is barely good enough to be a third-string quarterback. Let me go on record. I think he's on the Eagle practice squad now. So much for skill. He diminished Trevor Lawrence, took away his reps, but that's a football move. That's strictly a football move. It's not a move to get the guy fired. And now this thing that happened in this restaurant, what tends to happen, Mac? Sometimes by nature, people like to be accommodating to other people. They have a hard time saying no or get away. The young lady dances over to him. You kind of freeze up for a moment. He's not going to push her. He's tired. He's not going to run out of his seat. Some people might do it, some won't. And, she danced by him a while. It was a terrible look. Yeah. But come on. He didn't take her to his hotel room where she said, he did this or that. Give me a break. Let him settle that, talk to his wife about it, his family, and move on. It's none of our darn business. That stuff goes on all the time. Let's say he got up, he danced with her on the way. I really don't want to hear about it. Urban Meyer might be a lousy coach for the Jaguars. He might not be the nicest guy. I don't know. Paul Feinenbaum on ESPN there, like he was talking about Urban Meyer in less than flattering terms, the type of person he is. But consider this too. The Jaguars gave Urban Meyer a massive contract to coach their team. Massive. Do you think the owner is going to fire him and then pay him for all those years for doing nothing?
Jack, I check.
Break the contract.
I don't. Right. That's what I don't know. I don't know what the contract says and how he could void the contract. I don't.
You can't void it.
Right. Well, you don't know that either because you haven't read the contract, Jack. So you're just saying that. We both haven't read the contract. We don't know if there's actions that are make the team look bad. We don't know what clauses are in there. I don't know. So I'm not going to say they can or can't. The only thing I think, I agree with you. A lot of stuff is being made out of nothing when it comes to stuff like this. And I think it's a shame. And I think that I agree with you. People that call these reporters and this media, boy, if you went into their past or what they do right now, I guarantee you. And if it got put on camera phone and went viral, a lot of people would be fired. If this is the standard, a lot of people will be fired. Jack, we're going to take a quick break right now. We'll be back on the other side, guys, with more stuff. We got Lance Meadow coming, the expert in your Giants, commentator for the Giants for years, and ESPN there. So, folks, stick with us. Right after these breaks, we'll be back on the other side with more Mac and Jack Sports.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, Visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
If you talk, and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Right.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on live through Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. on YouTube, Facebook, and also on Twitch, Jack. Later on, folks, you can check our show out on a bunch of audio platforms, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, all over the place. So, Jack, let's get into some more of the MLB where we left off, right? We both made some good predictions, and in the beginning of the year, I said that the Yankees probably would make the playoffs, but would get knocked out again, as they have every year. And when I look at the other teams, you look at the Dodgers, who are just signing everybody. That's an all-star team. You look at the Giants, they kind of put a bunch of players together that were kind of older, and they have a little bit of youth in there. Tampa Bay brings youth in all the time. The Red Sox, a good young team that have a lot of speed, good hitters, a good defense. And I look at the Yankees. And the Yankees, as I said in the beginning of the year, needed starting pitching. Real good starting pitching. Cole, while he's considered an ace in the game final decisions, when Cole's on a mound, when it's all or nothing, he's 1-4 in his lifetime. Against the Red Sox, he was 4-4. In fact, I had a question of whether they should start Cole or not, to be honest with you, before the game started. I thought maybe you might want to go with Cortez. You might want to go with one of the other guys. Maybe you do
come on, Mac.
Let me finish, Jack. I'm just talking about what the Yankees do all the time. They go analytics, right? They got people up in the front office that give us analytics, and their analytics tell you that you go with power to win. You have a strong relief pitching bullpen, and that's about it. The Yankees do not have a base hitting team. They have a little speed on the bench, which they don't use that to start with as starting players. We got outfielders right now that we're not sure of. I mean, we're supposed to have a Golden Glove left fielder, and he either strikes out or hits home runs. Judge is a great player when he's healthy. There's no doubt. That's guaranteed. We got Judge. Center field's a big question mark. We have one guy that's hurt all the time. We got a great, almost a legendary player for the Yankees in Brett Gardner. I mean, great may be too big of a word. I love Brett Gardner. And they kept him on, and he played a lot this year. And sometimes he did real good. But he has no arm in the outfield. He can't throw the ball hardly to second base for center field. It's normally on a bounce, for God's sake. He's lost some speed. And for a contact hitter, his batting average is way down. Now, I'm not saying Gardner is a bad player. I'm just saying he's not that good anymore. Age caught up with him. And we got a catching team that is inadequate. So we have no shortstop to speak of. We really don't have a good outfield besides Judge, as far as offensively and defensively. We have no catcher. And our starting pitcher is supposed to be an ace. And you say, oh, come on. I'm just giving you his stats, Jack. He gives up home runs. And you can't depend on a bullpen every year and have a shot at the World Series. You can't. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I went overboard saying maybe Cole shouldn't pitch. Of course, we signed him for $34 million a year for that.
36 for 9 years.
There you go.
Years for 9
Give
years.
or take $2 million.
Heavy money.
Yes. And again, he's blows it when it's all or nothing. And against the Red Sox, as I said, he's 500. So I don't know what they should do with Boone. I don't know if they should let him go. I don't know what they should do with Cashman. Maybe they should let him go. I don't know. But them analytic guys that are calling games up there and Boone is not fighting them should all be fired because their analytics don't work. So I just want your thoughts on certain positions, Jack. We need an outfielder for sure. We need a catcher for sure. We need a shortstop for sure. And we definitely need another starting pitcher. Do you think they get it done?
You know, you can't just go in and say, get me this, get me that. It's like going to a fancy restaurant in Manhattan, okay? And all of a sudden, the food that is very, very good, you feel, well, it's maybe not 5 star, it's 4.5 star. And the owner can't just go in and say, get me another head chef and then storm out and expect for it to be done. It depends what's available out there for you to get. And shortstop position absolutely has got to be addressed. There are a number of high-profile shortstop free agents. Carlos Correa from the Houston Astros. Corey Seager, who had a real down year for the Dodgers, but was an MVP a couple of years ago and can easily bounce back and get into top form. He's going to be available. He could be affordable. Trevor Story and so on. But to start scapegoating certain people, starting with the manager, Aaron Boone, he's done very little wrong. He's made a lot of right moves when he's been on the field. He's played who he could play. He's used his pitching staff, how he can use them. And he's also showed guts getting Cole out of the game early. The logical move, you have your ace, Garrett Cole. You're all set up for that game. Garrett Cole pitched very poorly. There's no getting around it. But last year in the playoffs, on short rest, Game 5, he pitched really well against the Rays. Really, really well in a big, big spot. They couldn't score. Garrett Cole might start developing a reputation that Clayton Kershaw was developing with the Dodgers. His postseason performances wouldn't match his regular season performances. But last year when the Dodgers won the World Series, Kershaw had that breakthrough finally. Look, Garrett Cole pitched well during the season. He's going to come in all probability, number 2 for the Cy Young Award. He's given you quality in the 2 years he's been there. But you would want him in a big game against the Red Sox to be lights out. Not pitch as poorly as he did. Didn't come through. It's a fair criticism. Gardner getting scapegoated is ridiculous. Look what he did the second half of the season. Now, Gardy was terrible on Tuesday night. I mean, not only, I mean, he was striking out and he seemed clueless. The worst game I've ever seen him play at bat. He was horrendous for one game, but it is a one-game playoff. No one's saying Gardner should be a starting outfielder next year. He's a reserve outfielder. He's cheap. He comes cheap as contract. He has a $2.3 million player option, or the Yankees could give him $7.5 million. The Yankees aren't going to give him $7.5 million. So the Yankees will probably settle, give Gardner about $3.5 million. He's going to be very affordable. You're not going to get anyone better.
Jack, listen, first of all, you don't know you got to bring up some guys. You got to give some young.
They brought up guys during the regular season.
And they played well. And they played very well. Listen, I know you love Gardner. I do too. But there's a time that everybody moves on. It just happens, Jack. Gardner's been playing for years with the Yankees, has been a champion, a go-getter, a hard-playing.
Okay, let's get rid of Gardner.
And our catching sucks, period. And as far as a shortstop goes, Jack, I don't care who they get. We got to get some youth in here, and we got to get some players in here.
One of the high-profile free agent shortstops they have to get. There are a few of them on the free agent market. I agree. That's got to get addressed first and foremost. Corey Kluber's a free agent. If the Yankees can re-sign him, they should. He was hurt last year. But listen, quality pitching is hard to get. You can't just say, well, let's go out there, get some pitchers. Let's get some outfielders. Let's get this. Let's get that. You're not going into a store where you can.
What did the Dodgers do? How did the Dodgers do it, Jack? Yankees can't do what the Dodgers do? They can't. I guess that's all done.
The Yankees have done it. Listen, the Yankees have been in the playoffs 5 years in a row.
That's all well and good. So have a lot of teams been in the playoffs. That's what I'm saying is that the thing they've been doing for the last 5 years doesn't work in the playoffs. Doesn't work. It's been proven over and over and over again. How many times you got to keep doing the same thing?
Who should they get? It's easy to say. Look, last year, the Yankees could have signed J.C. Realmuto. The Phillies re-signed them. The Yankees would have been giving big money. They would have overpaid. It would not have been a good deal.
There are catchers, Jack, in the minors, maybe not on their team, that are some very good prospects out there. It's time we got some youth, Jack. I'm sorry.
And they will bring them up over time.
Well, Jack,
they got to be ready to play. Okay, and you can't just top of the line catchers. Look what the Mets did. Well, let's use them as a model. They laid out the money. They got McCann to catch for them. Signed him to a 4-year deal, $10 million a year. He was a dud last year for the Mets. Before that, the Mets signed Wilson Ramos. He was a dud for them.
Why don't we bring up what the Tampa Bay Rays do every year, Jack? Why don't we bring that up? Let's stop talking about the Mets and how bad. Let's talk about the successful teams. Use the Rays as a model, Jack.
Okay, but the Yankees have been comparable to the Rays. When I say comparable, not as good the last couple of years. But look, the Rays won the division. The Yankees made the playoffs. They didn't fall flat on their face.
The Rays went to the World Series, Jack.
And the year before, the Yankees came 1 run away in the final decisive game. The Rays beat them by 1 run in the 5th and final decisive game.
It doesn't matter.
The margin between the Yankees and Rays was extremely slim.
So then they got worse, is what you're telling me.
The Yankees, listen, I expected the Yankees to be what they were. Okay? I called it. I said they were a wild card team in the beginning of the year. They'd make the wild card. They make the wild card in the last game of the season. I said it all along. I'm not deluded with the Yankees.
You're telling me that Boston is just smarter than us then. The Boston Red Sox are just a better organization than we are because they took a team that was near last place last year and made it all the way to the wild card and is now in the playoffs. How'd they do it? I'm saying, Jack, that there are times and analytics built this team to hit home runs. That's what they do. If they don't hit home runs, they lose. They lose.
Let me ask you this.
And let me tell you something else. You talk about Cole. The last month, Cole stunk. Cole hasn't pitched.
What do you suggest to get rid of Cole?
Had a good game. Cole hasn't had a good game in months. You can't get rid of. How are you going to get rid of Cole?
Not months, Mac. That's going a little too far. But listen,
last month.
Okay,
I will pull up. You want me to pull up his ERA for last month, Jack? I think you already know what it is.
Okay, so what do you want to do specifically, Mac, here? So let's say get rid of this guy, get rid of that guy. How do you replace him with someone better? Any guy on the team, even catcher. Everyone's saying, get rid of Gary Sanchez. Well, you got a Higoshiaka there, too. Do we want to get rid of him as well?
Yeah, you got to start from scratch, Jack. You got to go into
from scratch. So just get
different teams. If it's not in your minor leagues, of different teams where there's very good prospects that are playing really good at AAA, and give them a chance. You can't keep, unless you're happy, Jack. We have this discussion before. Are you happy with the Yankees just making the playoffs every year and get knocked out? Or would you rather
listen, I agree with you.
Or would you rather them have a bad year or have 2 bad years and then make a World Series run? What would you rather have?
I understand what you're saying. I'm getting tired of the Yankees getting bumped out of the playoffs year after year, not making it to World Series. But we forget early in the year, Stanton's a bum. Get rid of him. Eat the contract. Well, Stanton right now is the most dangerous hitter in all of baseball, arguably. Aaron Judge. Don't sign him to an extension. He gets hurt. We got to move on from Aaron Judge. We heard all of this stuff during the year. Judge is one of the best players in baseball.
I won't disagree with you there.
Point blank. And Gleyber Torres, let's get rid of him. He's this, he's that. Well, you play him at second base. He's fine. He's got tremendous talent. DJ LeMayo, what a bust he is. They shouldn't have signed him to the contract. They should have gotten pitching. Well, look at the way the Yankees suffered when DJ LeMayo was out the last week. They sure missed him a heck of a lot. Listen, certain times you're saddled down by a contract. In the case of Aaron Hicks, he's coming back next year. He has 5 years left at $10 million a year. You don't want to just eat the money, but I wouldn't hand him the center field position and pencil him in. I want to see what he has there. Sometimes you do have to eat a contract in certain circumstances.
You believe
back from it.
You really believe LeMayo's contract was a good contract. You really believe that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And LeMayo's getting, when I say a good contract, at the time they signed it, it was a very good contract for the Yankees because LeMayo was an absolute star, and the total amount of $90 million total, okay? And the Yankees got 6 years out of it, $15 million a year. I compared it to the 6-year deal George Springer signed with Toronto, $25 million a year for 6 years. And believe me, that hasn't been a good contract for Toronto. Springer didn't have a good year for them. And they got 5 years and $125 million left for Springer. And the Yankees got $50 million less to give to LeMayo on there. LeMayo was good last year. He just wasn't good in comparison to himself. If we compare LeMayo to what he was the year before, he had a poor year. But if you just compare him to the average guy, he hits, 270. He's in the lineup each day. He was steady defensively. He was like a rock there. He was okay. I mean, just not in comparison to what he was before. Sanchez, the problem with Sanchez is he has these moments of greatness. You move on from him. You don't know what he's going to produce. Listen, I'm all for moving on from Sanchez if you get the right replacement. But premium catchers, that's the hardest position to find a quality regular day in, day out.
I'm trying to remember the team that has like 6 catchers that are all very good potential. I'll look it up after the show. Listen, Jack. It's what bothers me. It's the same. You keep doing the same thing over and over and over. and they go too long with certain contracts. They went way too long with CC Sebastian his last year. They should have let him go. And I listen, I dig the loyalty. I like that. I like.
Well, if you have a contract with the guy, you let him go, it means you have to pay him.
Listen, Jack, maybe so. Maybe so. I don't know what the clause, again, I don't know what the clauses are in that contract, how much they would have to give him, or how much would be arbitrated. I don't know. I'm not sure the contracts because I haven't been privy to those. All I'm saying, Jack, is that I love the loyalty of the Yankees to a point. And Sanchez there should have been no question he should have been let go. There's no question they should have went after another new pitcher.
It's not loyalty, Matt. They're
Listen.
doing business decisions. Matt, Gary Sanchez had a run during this season where he was outstanding. He started poorly, he ended poorly, but in the middle, he, had a nice spurt. I mean, we've seen Gary Sanchez when he's been really good. I think we should switch to football. I'm going to adjust my voice. Listen to Voice of Reason, Lance Meadow, okay? What he has to say. It's happy.
Yes.
Look, the Giants are coming off a victory, so
Right.
Lance is,
Right. As you tell me to bring on Lance,
a lot easier.
you just keep on talking, Jack, when you tell me to do this. It's very interesting. You probably wasted about 3 minutes telling me to bring on Lance when I would just have done it anyway. So let's bring on our Giants expert, the busiest man in broadcasting, Giants Network, Blue Kickoff, ESPN, Westwood One. Lance has done it all. So let's bring him on. Giants win their first game. We want to talk to Lance about that. Good morning, Lance. How you doing?
Good morning, guys. How's everything?
Oh, we're doing well. It's me and Jack going through what we do every day with our differences of opinion, and nothing ever gets solved, but it's fun to do anyway. So, Lance, we had you on in the beginning of the season, and we talked about a lot of things that we thought were possible for the Giants, and the Giants take the worst route in the world. They go 0-3 in some games. Doesn't matter. It's still a loss. But this game was really impressive to me, Lance, in a bunch of ways. One, they're 0-3 going up against New Orleans team that people think are a legitimate playoff contender. Two, they lose their two starting wide receivers, and two receivers step up and play unbelievably. Our rookie, Cladorius, and Ross, who we picked up from the Bengals. And am I imagining this, Lance, or is Jones a lot like Shepard and Ross a lot like, Slayton in a way? They're big and fast, and Jones makes those cuts, and he's a great slot receiver.
Well, I do think Ross is a guy that takes the top off the defense, similar to Slayton, so they're both vertical threats to that standpoint. I don't think Tony really compares to anyone in particular because I think he's so unique in terms of his ability to really zig and zag through the defense. Not to say that Shepard and Slayton can't get yardage after the catch, but I wouldn't necessarily put Tony in the same comparison. I think Ross is a speed guy, and they certainly had speed previously on the roster. It's just a matter of you saw those guys get opportunities and make immediate impacts. And remember, when they made all these moves in the offseason, this is what they envisioned. They envisioned being able to turn to a variety of wide receivers and be extremely versatile in terms of what they could do on offense, meaning you have to bring the defense's attention to everybody. You can't sleep on any of the wide receivers, any of the running backs. And I think that pretty much was answered. Listen, it's a very small sample size, okay? I think we have to be very careful to jump to conclusions because, Giants fans were absolutely killing this team over the first 3 weeks. Now you're going to tell me after one performance, which really needed the ultimate comeback of all comebacks, that now everything is all right? I mean, I think once again, it's important to take a step back and realize, hey, nice win, nice come from behind victory. There's still a lot of work to be done for this team.
Can I just ask, Lance, one thing I have a hard time getting a read on is the salary cap. And I tried to use logic. Joe Judge was on Bill Belichick's staff. You'd think they have a good relationship. James Bradbury has taken a little step back at cornerback for the Giants this year. Stephen Gilmore becomes available. How do the Carolina Panthers clear space under the cap, but the Giants don't? You would think Joe Judge would have maybe the inside track because of his relationship with Bill Belichick to get Stephen Gilmore, would have been a big asset to the Giants. Instead, he goes to Carolina. to at least replace J.C. Horn for this year, who went out with an injury. So what gives there? I just don't understand it.
Well, the simple answer is Carolina had more cap space and flexibility than the Giants. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Keep in mind also, the Giants went out and they spent a lot of money this offseason. Jack, where are they going to get the rest of this money that you're talking about to wheel and deal with Bill Belichick? They went out, they got Adoree Jackson. They went out, they signed Kenny Golladay. And the laundry list of other guys that they brought in on top of the draft picks. So I just don't think they had the flexibility. If you notice, they actually just recently reworked James Bradbury's contract to give them some flexibility in case they need to add a guy off the street because of an injury that emerges. So I think you're talking about two teams that were on opposite ends of the spectrum going into the season in terms of salary cap space. And the other thing is, remember, the Giants drafted Aaron Robinson. He'll be eligible to come off the PUP list in a few weeks. And they have a number of other younger guys in the cornerback position. That's not to say that they can't use Stephon Gilmore with the way this defense is playing. Point well taken. But Carolina, I think, was more of an urgent need and had the salary cap space because, as you mentioned, J.C. Horn was their first-round pick. He goes down. They also acquired C.J. Henderson from the Jaguars about a week or two ago. They had a distinctive need for the cornerback position, and they clearly had more financial flexibility. So that's the biggest difference right there.
Lance, like you said, a lot of Giant fans have been down on the Giants for the last 3 losses. And I think expectations were really high because of the big free agency. They picked up Galladay. They picked up, the Minnesota big tight end who's a red zone threat. And they got, and you look at Shepard and you look at, Saquon was supposed to be healthy and ready to go right away. Of course, that didn't prove to be true. So they get off to a slow start. And Daniel Jones has been playing very well through all of this, I think. I think he's been solid. He hasn't until last week, he hasn't lit the league on fire, but very solid. Not a lot of turnovers, been moving the team down the field. They just, the offensive line has been having problems. It seems to me that the Giants really needed this game just to start feeling good about themselves, right? I mean, Galladay looked great as the big receiver they wanted. He was running into people, taking people on, and the offensive line seemed to gel just a little bit better. And, of course, Saquon kind of come into his own a little bit, really helped the Giants out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to, Mac, what I said earlier. I think this is really what they envisioned coming into the season, that this is how the offense would operate, spread the wealth. I think in conjunction with the offensive line, to your point, I thought Daniel Jones got rid of the football very quickly. So I think that went hand in hand, and that was a big reason why there were actually no sacks in this game at all. The Saints nor the Giants recorded a sack, and that went a long way in helping them put together some of those lengthy drives late in the game. Saquon was very decisive, found the hole. If you go back and you watch that last game-winning touchdown, there was no hesitation. Saquon, he found the hole, he hit it. Bam, hit the hole, touchdown, end of story. You want to see more of that within Saquon Barkley. And, like I said, they gave their playmakers an opportunity to go out there and do a lot of the heavy lifting. Kadarius Toney converts a 3rd and 18. Kenny Golladay on a key 3rd down that set up the game-tying field goal. He broke 2 tackles to gain a 28-yard big gain down the field. I mean, that doesn't happen unless you're getting that extra effort out of your playmakers. So I don't really want to say it was one guy in particular. I don't think it was just Daniel Jones on an island or the offensive line. I think you got the perfect combination of everybody doing what they anticipated. And when you have that, you put yourself in a position to win. They also avoided the negative plays. Let's not forget about that. They were plagued by penalties the last 2 weeks. They had 19 of them. They only had 3 penalties in the last game. I thought that was huge. They did not shoot themselves in the foot. That was big.
No,
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Sometimes a team bypasses a certain play and it comes back to haunt them. In the case of Micah Parsons, Micah Parsons is going to be an anchor in the Cowboy defense. It looks for years to come, barring injury. He's been outstanding so far. And the Giants did business with the Chicago Bears, so the Bears could draft Justin Fields. They moved down. They got Kadarius Toney and the Bears' #1 pick next year. On reflection, that's like a 2-for-1 deal, Kadarius Toney and whoever else they draft. But Micah Parsons looks like a sure thing right now. Is that the type of deal that could haunt the Giants because Micah Parsons is going to be in the Giant division?
I think it really goes back to, Jack, what they do next season. They're going to have 2 first-round picks. They're going to have their own first-round pick, and they're going to have the Bears pick, which you just referred to. So we really need to revisit this conversation down the road. If they turn out to get great resources out of those 2 first-round picks, it's really, to me, counterproductive to play the coulda, woulda, shoulda game because you're helping yourself in the long run. Listen, I like Micah Parsons. Your point is well taken. I'm not going to disagree. I think he could very well be the NFL Rookie Defensive Player of the Year if it's all said and done. I mean, think about it. They lost DeMarcus Lawrence. They put him at the edge. They add him on defensive end. They can move him around. Yeah, he's made a significant impact. But the Giants, to me, if you go back, okay, let's turn the clock back to your point. Let's say they take Micah Parsons. They don't make the trade with the Bears. As it stands right now, based on what happened to this team over the first 3 games and them needing a tremendous comeback, is Micah Parsons solving all of their issues? Is Micah Parsons revamping that defense?
With Blake Martinez out, he definitely would have been a major difference maker.
Oh, that's fine, but I think their problems go beyond just missing Blake Martinez. You started off the conversation, right? I'm going to put your own words back in your mouth. You were talking about James Bradbury struggling, right? So does Micah Parsons go out and defend the wide receiver on the edge? Does Micah Parsons, so he's cleaning up all the tackles that Blake Martinez is not there for, and he's getting after the quarterback? The Giants only have 6 sacks on the season. Yeah. That's extremely low in terms of the rankings. Is he helping now Leonard Williams get back to what everybody expected and now be back on path to get double-digit sacks? Once again, I'm not disputing the fact that Micah Parsons isn't a playmaker. My point is, people think that Micah Parsons alone was going to solve all the Giants' defensive issues. Football doesn't work like that. Remember, they had some offensive struggles in the first 3 games of the season. Remember, they only scored more than 20 points once in the first 3 games. So he was going to make an impact. He just wasn't going to make as much of an impact, I think, as everybody makes it out to be.
Well, Lance, you bring up Leonard Williams, and I think the Giants letting go a couple of the defensive players from last year. I think Hill was one of them, if I remember correctly.
They traded him, yeah.
Yeah, I think that affected the Giants line more than people thought it would. I mean, there's certain players, Lance, you would agree that, are like the stars, and there's others that just do work in the defensive line to help make it these people stars, whether it's taking up gaps, whether it's shutting down the run, whatever. And they had a nice little defensive line last year. And I don't know if they realize getting rid of a couple of these players would upset that card a little bit. And I think in the beginning anyway, it kind of has, where their defensive line isn't as effective as it was last year.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I don't think it's so much B.J. Hill, who they traded to the Bengals, Mac. I think you're referring to Dalvin Tomlinson.
Yeah, him too, yes.
Who they lost to the Minnesota Vikings. And yes. I was campaigning all offseason. I said, listen, Tomlinson's not the guy that shows up in the box score all the time. He does a lot of the dirty work, which is your point. And when you lose a guy that eats up space, helps stop the run, it changes the dynamics of the rest of the defense. And you're right. I do think Tomlinson gave Leonard Williams opportunities. I don't think there's any doubt if you go back and you watch the film. And when you don't have that guy eating up space, now Leonard is getting more attention. Now, Austin Johnson, I think, has played well. They have Danny Shelton. It's not as if they don't have guys that can't stop the run, but Tomlinson was a staple. He did not miss a game. You knew what you're going to get out of him. He was a consistent force. I think another guy that not a lot of people are talking about, who was just on Monday Night Football and actually had a very good game for the Chargers, Kyler Fackrell.
Yes.
You remember last season, okay? He got some pressure after the quarterback. He had that return for a touchdown against the Cowboys in the first matchup. These are the glue guys that we're talking about, the unsung heroes that, once again, they're not big names, but I thought they did a lot of the little things that added up. So I'm with you. I think if you were asking me to highlight 2 guys that I think had tremendous value last season that they are feeling the absence of, it would be Dalvin Tomlinson as well as Kyler Fackrell.
We keep hearing the term that it's early in the season. It's only the 5th game, 17-game schedule. But if the Giants are to lose to the Cowboys, they're going to be 1-4. And the chances of getting a wild card berth is going to be a bit of a long shot. And they'll be 3 games behind the Cowboys, meaning even if they beat them in the 1 remaining game, there's a lot of work to be made up. Is this a virtual must-win situation for the Giants this weekend?
When you put yourself in an 0-3 hole, I think every game becomes that much more important because you lose the wiggle room, Jack, is what you're referring to. Now, is this the end-all, be-all of the season? I wouldn't go that far. We've seen teams recover. We've also seen nobody run away with this division. Now, I don't think this is going to be a duplication of last season where everybody was hovering around 500, and the Giants benefited from that, right, guys? Because nobody pulled away. The Giants played a little bit better in the second half, and they were able to overcome that deficit. I don't see that happening. I think a team like the Cowboys can easily run away with things if somebody else starts to falter, and they're going to prevent another team from making a late run. But I also think that you can't lose focus of the fact that they're 0-2 in the division if they lose this game. That, to me, is the bigger killer. Because when you get into tiebreakers and when you get into trying to make that late recovery, that's when you lose your footing. If you go back and you look at, well, we're only 2-4 in the NFC East. Last season, they had a really good record in the division. They weren't playing great football outside of the division, guys, but they were playing good in the division. So the killer of this loss potentially would be you now would be 0-2 in your division because you already lost to Washington. So that's why I would elevate the importance of this game. But I wouldn't go so far to say that you lose this game, all bets are off, and you pretty much are putting the nail in the coffin. Wouldn't go that far.
Lance, I expected that the Cowboys would be, and the Giants would be challenging each other for the division this year. That's just how I saw it. Not just being a Giant fan, just looking at the talent on paper and stuff. Dallas, the biggest questions about Dallas, one of them has been answered. Another one looks like it's been answered was, of course, Dak coming back from the injury and the Dallas defense. And both of them, Dak looks like he hasn't missed a step. He's not running like he used to, but he's still throwing the ball really well. And the defense under Quinn has improved a lot. I mean, they're competitive now. So what do you think the Giants have to do to come out of there with a victory? I mean, against this high-powered offense and a defense that's improved.
It's real simple, Mac. They have to score. And I know that sounds like a really simplistic answer. This is not the type of game. I hear everybody, trying to go through strategy. Win time of possession, run the football, wear down the Dallas defense. The Cowboys, with the exception of the Chargers game that they won 20-17, they have put up just about 30 points at least in their 3 other games. What has been the Giants' struggle? The Giants have struggled to put points on the board consistently. You're not beating the Cowboys in a grinded-out type of affair. It's just not happening. You've got to be able to score. They need those explosive plays. They had 8 plays of 20 or more yards against the Saints. They need to duplicate that performance. They need to finish drives. The one thing that also gets to me moved to the back burner a bit because of how they rallied for a victory is they're still 4 of 12 in the red zone this year. Okay, that's 33%. You're not winning a lot of games if you only get 1 touchdown and 3 opportunities, which has been the exact average every single game. So this is a game, it's real simple. They have to get into a track meet with the Cowboys, and they have to prove that when the Cowboys punch them, they punch back and they find the end zone. That, to me, is the way that you beat the Dallas Cowboys. You mentioned Dallas has answered a lot of their questions. Absolutely. And you know why? Because when you get your quarterback back and you get your offensive line back and you're healthy, you can score at the rate that they were before all of those guys went down last season. See, everybody talked about the defense last season for the Cowboys. The problem was they weren't also scoring because they lost so much firepower. Now they're scoring. So you know what they said to Dan Quinn? They said, Dan, just get our defense back to respectability. You don't have to be a top 10 unit. Just move us to the middle of the pack. We'll score enough to win games. And you see that happening through the first 4 contests.
What no one discusses is how involved is Joe Judge in the play calling. I mean, the perception is that Jason Garrett calls all the plays. He's completely in charge. Does Joe Judge have a little more say, a little more involvement than people think?
Sure. I think at the beginning of the week, and Judge has said this to the reporters who cover the team, that they have conversations when they're preparing for the upcoming opponent and they go over strategy. So he's absolutely heavily involved. But as far as during the game, yeah, Jason Garrett's the one calling the plays. Now, that doesn't mean that after the first drive, that Judge is not going back to Jason Garrett and saying, hey, I think we need to make this type of adjustment. I think, that to me is misconceived in terms of how things go throughout the course of a game, that just because he doesn't run the defense or the offense or the special teams in particular, because he's not a coordinator, he's not having say. they have a lot of conversations on that headset during the course of a game, which can't be picked up by anybody. But his heavy influence comes, Jack, to answer your question, at the beginning of the week, where they're going over, okay, here's the strengths, weaknesses, and so forth of our opponent. This is what we think we should go over the course of the game, and this is how we should game plan that. And then when they get to the game, they're going to make some adjustments based on what occurs. But yeah, Garrett is doing the heavy lifting on offense. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But to think that Judge doesn't have a place to come into the conversation and make some adjustments and changes, I think that's overlooked.
Yeah, also Golden Tate, former Giant wide receiver, criticized Joe Judge recently for some of the Giant players' injuries, the way he works them. He works them a little too hard. I mean, what's your take on that?
So we're going back to they're running too many laps at the beginning of the season. Is that where the narrative is going back? I thought we put this to rest last season where everybody made a big deal about it. The players clearly proved that they rallied around Joe Judge. They bought into what he said, but now we're revisiting this. Listen, no disrespect to Golden Tate, but Golden Tate did not end his Giants tenure probably as he would have hoped and as he would have liked. There were some things, obviously, that didn't go according to plan. If you remember, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he scored that touchdown publicly to the cameras. He complained that he wasn't getting the ball. And I'm not saying that there's no merit to what Golden Tate is saying. Don't misinterpret that. I'm just saying that when you're not currently on an NFL team and you get an interview, it's now a great opportunity to perhaps throw your 2 cents in to the pool and see whether or not something sticks. No, I do not think that the reason why a bunch of players got hurt, Blake Martinez, which was a non-contact injury, by the way. He didn't even get hit. And a few of these guys with their hamstring injuries, I really don't think it's because he's working them too hard. If you ask a lot of the players, Jack, Jabril Peppers, who actually just suffered a hamstring injury, he said multiple times, I don't feel as gassed in the fourth quarter because conditioning is actually a big point of emphasis for this team. So, no, I really don't think the reason why some of these injuries piled up is because now it's too overwhelming. But last season, by the way, when the team stayed healthy, I didn't hear anybody complaining about, oh, my God, he ran too many laps in week 3 and it's not coming back to bite us. Come on. I mean, let's at least have some perspective in this conversation.
Lance, I find it amusing that professional athletes that are supposed to be in top condition all year round are going to have a problem with running a couple of laps. I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know. Hey, Lance, we always love having you come in. The only thing I'm kind of disappointed in this year, and it looks like the Giants might have found some answers on offense, is the big lack of production on defense this year. They were really a strong unit last year. I don't know if it's going to take some time for them to gel on the line. I mean, Martinez is a big hurt for the Giants, and that defensive secondary was supposed to be their strongest suit. Maybe it's going to take time for them to gel too. Maybe it's just going to take time. And Dallas, I think Dallas. I think it's a win they got to have, as you said, just because of the division. And the games aren't going to get any easier coming up. They got 4 or 5 big games coming up. If they can get this under their belts, a little momentum, a little more feeling good, and maybe a little bit more cohesiveness, in the teams themselves.
Well, I think this is the way that I look at it. You've got to build off the momentum of that Saints victory. If you don't, then to me, it goes back to what I said earlier. We put that win on an island, and we say, hey, great rally, but in the big picture of things, it didn't mean much of anything. So before people start changing how they're perceiving this team, you have to take what you did last game and you have to say that wasn't a flash. That was actually something of a sign of to build upon what could be happening moving forward. So I'm with you there. And I'm with you in terms of, yes, I think the defense has been disappointing over the first few games. But I always say this, don't assume how a team finishes is how they carry things over to the following season. The loss of Blake Martinez is significant. Here's another thing that I don't think is being brought up. They're playing more man-to-man than zone. And the reason I bring that up, when you play zone, you protect yourself, okay? If corners are beat, you got help over the top in that area. When you play man-to-man, if Adoree Jackson is beat, there's not a lot of guys there to rescue him anymore, okay? So notice that's what's happening. I think guys are left out a little bit more on an island that we saw last season. And when you don't get after the quarterback because the sacks are not up, then all of a sudden you're expecting your man-to-man competitions to win out. And that's not happening as much as it was last season because those guys weren't even put in that position. So the dynamics of the defense are a little bit different, and, of course, the injuries.
They can't play man-to-man against Dallas's receivers. I mean, That's inviting trouble.
Well, because there's so many weapons, and it's not just the receivers; it's the tight ends who have been heavily involved, as well as Zeke and Tony Pollard, who are doing a lot of damage out of the backfield.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough task for the Giants going down to Dallas and winning that, but it can be done, Lance. Thanks for joining us as you always do when we ask you to. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your day, Lance, and you make us a little bit more smarter on the Giants side of the ball every time you come in. Thank you again, my friend.
You got it, guys. Pleasure having me on the program. Thanks so much.
Take care. So there you go, Jack. Lance Meadow. I mean, who else would you want to talk to about?
I didn't ask him about the Jets. I held my tongue on that, like a quick comment. I have a right to brag. You know, the Jets play Sunday morning in England.
Yes.
It's Sunday morning, 9:30 in the morning, Mac. I mean,
Yes,
we'll be doing this show. As soon as this show ends, I'll have the Jet game to watch against the Atlanta Falcons. Big game in England.
Hey.
Why can't they give them the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against, the Dallas Cowboys or whatever in England? They're giving them the Jets and the Falcons, and they're telling the fans in England that's the best quality NFL football we have. And the fans in England don't know any better. They think the Jets and Falcons are elite.
Well, maybe they'll play elite with all that passing going on, Jackie. You never know. So, folks, we're going to take our second and last timeout. We'll be back on the other side. We still got some more football to talk about, Jack. So, folks, stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211-INFO-LINE. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again.
Alex is just...
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get it each.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live Thursday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. Your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch. We just had Lance Meadow on, and he just kind of straightened us out when it comes to the Giants. I love having him on. He's so knowledgeable about things and kind of, he has a lot of thoughts about the Giants, and he doesn't get too high and he doesn't get too low, Jack.
I mean, Lance, I wish I could be as perfect as he is in placing my words. I mean, Lance can be critical, but he's diplomatic while he's critical. I mean, he doesn't go off. I mean, he gets his opinions across in a near perfect way. The Golden Tate comments were an example. I mean, he didn't say anything insulting to Golden Tate, but you could see he clearly disagreed with a certain perspective, but he put it in a nice way. It's not like you and I, Mac, who's going to say Golden Tate is out of his mind. He's this, he's that, But listen, I might agree with Golden Tate in part because we talk about the non-contact injuries. I don't hold it against coaches when a guy has a contact injury, unless he's pushing him a little too hard in practice and there's too much contact. But the modern-day NFL coach, they steer away from contact in practice. It's not like the past coaches. But now it's a problem in sports. These guys are getting a lot of muscle pulls, hamstrings, and it's tough. And we discussed this with Jim Jeffcoat. Maybe guys on the sideline are cooling off for too long a period of time when they come off the field. Maybe they should all be on bicycles. They should all be stretching instead of sitting on the bench. I don't know.
I don't know either, Jack. I don't know the answer, but you are correct. There are way too many injuries, and that's in all sports. Folks, before we get to our NFL, more talk about the locals, every Thursday we try to do this. Our Wall of Fame, and right now we're in baseball, Jack, where we're talking about the players from the 40s and 50s for the most part. And there's one shortstop that played not for a long time, really, only 7 years. But for 5 of those years, he was an all-star. He was MVP in 58 and 59, and only 3,562 at-bats. He had 1,051 RBIs. That's almost 1 RBI for every 3 at-bat. He had 228 home runs over 20 a year, Jack, averaging. He had a 295 batting average, on-base percentage of 355, and a slugging percentage of 5.58. That's Ernie Banks from the Chicago Cubs. So that's who we put on the Wall of Fame today, Jack. Do you have any thoughts about Ernie Banks?
Ernie Banks was a lot better than those numbers indicate. I would get those numbers off there. Listen, Ernie Banks was called Mr. Cub. He was Mr. Sunshine. He would always come out with a sunny disposition and say, let's play 2 today. Okay, he loved, very easygoing guy. And Ernie Banks he was a 2-time MVP when the Cubs were last place team. And I don't like that about the MVP award. I wish they had changed it to best player in the league award.
Agreed.
Then that very well may have been very deserving for Ernie Banks, those years. And you know what it is with Ernie Banks, why he was never quite given the credit that he deserved, because he was on those very weak Chicago Cubs teams. Had he been playing in a bigger market and winning teams, the recognition would have been like so much greater. Now he played shortstop for a number of years, something like 7 years, he said. Then they moved him to first base, okay? Because playing the shortstop position, you only have so many years there, a lot of the players, because, the flexibility factor as you get older. But he was one of the great Cub players of all time, along with Ferguson Jenkins. Ernie Banks was also part of that 1969 Cub team. Through no fault of his, they had that collapse the year the Miracle Mets overtook them. The Cubs were leading just about the whole year. They had the legendary Leo DeRocha as their manager. Yeah. They had some terrific players: Banks, Ferguson Jenkins, Ron Santo, Yet, late in the season, the Mets just overtook them. And had Ernie Banks had one World Series title, you kind of wondered the perception on him. But he was very, very popular around Chicago. He kind of was a personality as much as he was a player, as far as him being loved, by Cub fans. And he was part of the Cub history. They remember when the Cubs were really bad, but they had a superstar on a bad team, and that was Ernie Banks.
Agree. So Ernie Banks was put in the Wall of Fame, one of our shortstops from the 40s and 50s, and a great player.
Oh, well, with 50s and 60s.
Well, I say 40s and 50s because I put people in there from the 40s too. That's why I'm saying 40s and 50s.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only reason I'm saying that. So let's get to the locals in the NFL, Jack. Of course, we already discussed the Giants at length. The Jets get their first win against the Tennessee Titans in overtime, and you predicted that they might win. I mean, on your underdog, you said they could possibly win this game, and you were right. The Jets played inspired football, if nothing else, coming back and giving it into overtime. They did not stop the big running back from Tennessee, but they did control him. They put a little bit of pressure on Tannehill too. I mean, they were all over Tannehill, and Zach Wilson played better, right? He played. He wasn't scared to go down the field. He's not one of those rookie quarterbacks that if he makes mistakes, he kind of goes in the shell. He came out still with confidence, throwing the ball downfield, and the Jets played some good ball against Tennessee, Jack.
Well, I'll tell you, early in the game, Zach Wilson threw a horrendous interception, and there was a little booing when he came off the field. Not nearly as bad as you'd think, but it was like Jet fans were getting restless because this has been going on for the most part all season, and they want to support him, but he was really looking inept at that point. And then all of a sudden in the second half, he came alive. He made a number of great throws, and the Jet fans were going crazy. But when Tennessee tied it up, took it into overtime, you're thinking, here it is. The Jets couldn't hold the lead at the end. And we didn't want to hear, well, the Jets played much better, but they lost again. I mean, that would have given people a sickening feeling. But the Jets win it in overtime, and the people got a glimpse into the future, with Zach Wilson. That was the nice thing about it, a glimpse into the future of what could be, that they've got their future quarterback. Sam Darnold's doing well with Carolina, no ifs or buts. But had Zach Wilson not had that game and Darnold's progress was continuing, people would have started wondering, because the Jet fans, I could tell, they're trying to show patience with Zach Wilson, but it wears on you week in, week out. They wanted Zach Wilson to show them something, and he definitely showed it. And even the Jets' running attack, with Michael Carter was improving. Their offensive line was giving Zach Wilson a little more time, opening up some more holes. I mean, the defense was, Derrick Henry had a good game, but he didn't go crazy, on the Jets. And they put Ryan Tannehill under a lot of pressure with their pass rush. It was a win they needed badly.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, had they even lost the close game, people would have thought maybe there was some progress, even though there wouldn't have been a good feel. They badly needed something like this. And looking into the stands, their fan base became energized again. They know the Jets aren't going to the playoffs, but they want to see that they're really moving forward. And Zach Wilson is the guy. Robert Saleh, before people get on him, keep in mind the Jet head coach came from the 49ers as a defensive specialist. And the Jet defenses, even through the tough times early in the year, they've been good. It was their offense that was struggling. So Robert Saleh, head coaches sometimes have to grow too on the job. So I think you see a situation where the head coach and the quarterback are growing together.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Without the turnovers, the Jets wouldn't have lost by as much as they have. So it has been offense. You can't expect a defense to, keep holding people down when you're giving up the ball 4 or 5 times a game. I mean, that's what they had to sew up, and it looks like they took a step in that direction. I want your thoughts on the Brady Belichick Bowl, right? There was so much hype on this. I knew. Listen, I hate it when they do this. I know it creates interest because I think 28 million people watched it, but I guess you could say it was a draw, right? I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won. The Pats kind of kept Tampa Bay's offense in check. I don't want to hear about the weather because they both play in the same weather. And the Patriots actually missed a field goal near the end of the game that could have maybe, had to win, but maybes don't count, right? The Bucs won. Patriots showed pretty good. Mac Jones didn't look bad at all. In fact, he looked okay. So any hope for the Patriot fans in this year, or is that just that one game where they had extreme amount of vision on this game? From
fans and media are ridiculous, Mac, ridiculous. I mean, to read these things coming out from the media, the headlines, and the fans being so fickle. The talk is, well, Brady won. Brady mentioned a few times in the post-game press conferences, I'm glad we won the game. He kept using the term win. Because the truth of the matter is, I mean, Brady didn't play well on balance. I mean, Belichick did a great job with setting up defensive schemes of Brady. There were a couple of passes Brady threw fairly well in the end zone late in the game that Antonio Brown should have came up with one of the two. Very uncharacteristic of Antonio Brown, who's a great receiver. One he dove, it went off his fingers. He normally makes that catch. Another, he lost the ball in the lights or something, and you could tell Brady kind of looking at him like, what's going on here? You normally know to turn for that. Listen, Patriots try a 56-yard field goal late in the game. Ball clanks off the goalpost. One more inch inside, it goes in. Patriots have a lead. Tom Brady has very little time to bring them back. So imagine the Patriots win. People are going to be saying Belichick gets his revenge. Belichick beats Brady. But because of 1 inch where the ball hits off the goalpost, they're saying some outlets Brady beats Belichick. Total nonsense. Complete total nonsense. Listen, it came out good in the sense that, Belichick did a great job containing Tom Brady, a great job. And Brady was adequate, you could say. Adequate. But he wasn't even better than Mac Jones, to be honest. Mac Jones was better statistically over the game. Mac Jones completed 18 passes in a row. But one thing stands out. Unlike Brady, who was trying to stretch the field, pass downfield, Mac Jones is dropping off a lot of short passes, a lot of short passes, which kind of added to his numbers statistically. But Mac Jones is a rookie. Give him time, He's, compare him to the other rookie quarterbacks. He's got to get better week by week. And on balance, Mac Jones played well.
Yeah.
So I think it was one of those things. It was kind of like win-win. But I don't want to hear this nonsense that Brady beat Belichick. Brady did not beat Belichick last Sunday in any way, shape, or form, except for the ball clanking off the goalpost and the Buccaneers escaping with a victory.
Hey, and in the end, it's a W and it's a L. It was just a lot of hype in this game, and to me, unwarranted hype. I mean, I understand the 20 years of them two together winning a lot of games, and who was responsible. To me, the Tampa Bay defense was a little bit better, than this game than it has been.
Tampa Bay has some problems in the secondary.
They
really do. They bring in Richard Sherman, who wasn't in shape to play a lot, yet they had to force him to play a lot to milk it out. And he wasn't the Richard Sherman we knew. Right off the bat, Mac Jones was going at Richard Sherman, attacking him, and that was part of the Patriot game plans.
Yes, and our friend from sports, from TGI Sports Talk, Keith, who does the updates and comes on and talks about the Patriots, says no more victories, and that's true. Listen,
no moral victories here. The Patriots need to win. They're 1-3 now.
Yes,
they really got to start winning.
Yes. I mean, if they can build on that, if the offense can get better because of that game, good. That's part of growing. But you know, at the end, a loss is a loss.
They got their future quarterback in Mac Jones. Allow him to grow. Allow him to get better, you know, as he goes along. He played well, Mac Jones.
Yeah, he played well. He played well.
Let's give him his due.
Yeah, he's not one of those quarterbacks like Herbert who can come in as a rookie and maybe take over a game. He's not built that way. So
well, listen, they have Brian Hoyer ready to come right in.
Right. So yes,
relief quarterbacks.
And the Patriots are very excited about that too. So let's take a quick look at Buffalo, right? Buffalo totally destroys the Texans, 40-0, Jack. You don't really hear that in the NFL anymore too much like that.
Well, 45-0. Not that.
Well, I'm trying to make the Texans feel a little bit better about themselves, Jack. But anyway, you really don't hear a score like that in professional football. They were favored by 16.5. You know, even Trubisky ran for a touchdown at the end there. You know, they put their second string quarterback in there. I guess Buffalo is just one of those teams that if you don't have a good defense, and Texans look like they had an okay defense, and you don't have an offense to match their points and to keep them off the field, they're a little bit like Kansas City, right? Kansas City's got a lot of weapons, and they can put the points up in a hurry if you don't keep them off the field. And the Texans couldn't keep Buffalo.
Right. You know, you perked my interest, Mac, by mentioning the name Mitch Trubisky. He's with the Buffalo Bills. This is his second year with Buffalo.
I think it's his first year, Jack.
I'm sorry, his first year. He signed in the offseason. But you're looking at all the former number one quarterbacks who are trying to get, you know, come back as a starter somewhere. And him signing with the Buffalo Bills, I know he has his old offensive coordinator who worked with him, you know, again, to maybe get straightened out. But Mitch Trubisky wasn't that bad with the Bears towards the end. There were some problems with Matt Nagy, the Bear coach, getting on the same page. But to be with the Buffalo Bills, he's not going to play unless Josh Allen gets injured. I mean, you know, Josh Allen is firmly entrenched as the Bill quarterback, arguably one of the best quarterbacks in football now, but that's for another discussion. So you kind of wonder what Mitch Trubisky's doing now. Would he have been better off going to a team like the Houston Texans, the team that they beat, an awful team where he'd at least get to play, or go to another situation where the number one quarterback isn't exactly a franchise quarterback where his opportunity might come again. So you kind of wonder Mitch Trubisky, who was drafted ahead of Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. And he hasn't been a bust. You know, he's been a little bit of a disappointment, but the potential is still there for him to be a quality starting quarterback. I just kind of wonder what he's doing with the Buffalo Bills, where he's really going to get to play very little if Josh Allen stays healthy.
You know, when that first happened, we went to Buffalo, I thought of this, Jack, right? Trubisky and Josh Allen are very similar, right? They both can run with the ball. They both got pretty big arms. But Josh Allen came on fast to become very accurate, which he wasn't when he first started. And the Chicago situation, as you saw, I was going to get to this after we got done with the Eagles, but Matt Nagy gave up the offensive call playing responsibilities to the offensive coordinator last week, and Justin Fields looked good instead of what he looked like the week before. And I think a lot of coaching situations, as we've talked about before, hurt some of the young quarterbacks. You know, you look at Tannehill, you know, you look at, there's a lot of quarterbacks that have moved on to different teams and have played better. And I think Trubisky thought in his mind, I'm still a young quarterback. I got to go and I got to learn some more before I go on back at the NFL. And I think Josh Allen, his progression over there, Trubisky looked at it and said, wow, this guy went, you know, we both can run with the ball. We're both playmakers. We both have good arms. Maybe I can get something from that coaching staff to make me a better, more accurate quarterback. And that's what I think he did. If you went to the Texans right now, the Texans aren't going to win because he's there. If you went to, you know, one of the other bad teams in the league, they're not going to win because he's there. Say, you know, whoever you want to put him on, whether it's the Jags or Texans, whatever, you know, saying that maybe they wouldn't have drafted, you know, Trevor Lawrence if he went there. I don't know. I'm just throwing teams out there. But I think he went there for the experience and to get some development, Jack. That's why I think he went there, because of the similarities between him and Josh Allen.
Well, and another thing too, there are very few job openings for starting quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, virtually every team has their franchise quarterback, or at least their quarterback for the next year or so. Okay, it kind of remains to be seen. The Texans are an exception. Deshaun Watson obviously is not going to play for them again when his situation clears up. The Texans will look to deal him elsewhere. So what's a Mitch Trubisky to do? Where's he to go? Maybe the Detroit Lions if Jared Goff doesn't perform moving forward. Not that he's been bad this year, Goff. He's done some good things, but the Lions haven't won, and they determined they want to go in another direction. Washington, Heineke, he's played well or on balance, but he's not exactly their franchise quarterback. Maybe there'll be an opening there, even with Fitzpatrick coming back. You don't know, but that would be a log jam to go to a place like that, join a few different quarterbacks. And that's why a guy like Cam Newton, no one's really picked up the phone. Everyone's basically set at quarterback. They really just need a backup. And I hate to switch to Cam Newton's very quickly, but people are wondering, well, why hasn't he hooked on with another NFL team? Because the only other NFL teams who could use him feel he'd be a distraction, not because of his personality, not because of the type of person he is, but you don't want to put him on a team like the Jets as Zach Wilson's backup, and then people start saying if Zach Wilson struggles, put Cam in. It hurts a starter's development that way. They don't want that distraction. But Mitch Trubisky is still a pretty young guy. Yeah. He's got his NFL future ahead of him. So I kind of feel he'll link on, to some team at some point. And maybe he's doing it the right way, going to the Bills, getting it all together, and then, he'll go elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about Cam Newton, the only team that I thought Cam Newton might go to as a backup would be the Ravens, because he's a running quarterback and that system is built for something like that. And RG3 was there, and I think he's still there. And that's
similar. No, RG3 isn't there anymore.
Okay, so who's the backup of the Ravens?
I don't recall the name off the top of my head, but I will say this with the Ravens, okay? That would have been a perfect fit. I don't know for the Ravens. I don't know about Cam Newton, but I still think it would be good that Cam would have a job, because there'd be absolutely no pressure on Lamar Jackson, because we know Lamar Jackson is better. No one's going to say replace Lamar Jackson, because he's already an elite established quarterback. And the style of play is the same. Okay, Lamar Jackson, a running quarterback. Cam Newton can adjust a little better.
Right, and of course Jackson has a stronger arm than Newton at this time, anyway. But for 2 games or something, if something happened to Jackson, maybe Cam could slip in there and they could pull out a couple wins. But anyway, so let's go to Philadelphia really quick. Philly, to me, again, Jack, I think has the potential to be a real good team. They have some tough games, just like the Giants coming up right now. And I think that anyway, the producer is showing me some stuff that I have no idea what it is right now. So I'll be back. Let me get back to what I was talking about. The Eagles, I think they're growing at coach too, right? I think
Are you taking Pags' spot here because Pags give you this material? The Eagles do not have the potential to be a really good team.
Let me finish, Jack. I'm talking about at certain positions. I think the coaching staff has a lot to. What I mean by potential, Jack, is I think they could sneak up and beat anybody at any time. You got to admit, the 49ers, they were in that game. Dallas just poured it on. They couldn't catch up with. Kansas City, we're talking Super Bowl contenders here that they're in there mashing with. And as we see, Dallas has a shot at really competing in the playoffs. So I'm not saying that the Eagles are ready to take on playoff teams. I'm saying there is potential there at certain positions. And I think that the Eagles could sneak up and beat somebody if you're not ready for them. I just think the head coach, the young quarterback, the young receiver, I think they got a blend. And I think near the end of the year, I think the Eagles will be a solid team, Jack. I really do.
I mean, solid doesn't necessarily translate into winning. You could be a 6-10 team and be a solid team because you could be competitive. But you're right. I mean, the head coach, Nick Sirianni, he's growing, and he's growing essentially with a rookie quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who I know he's in the second year. Devonta Smith, the wide receiver. They have a number of veterans on that team. And you kind of wonder, I don't want to say it's just a wasted year for the veterans because they have no realistic chance of going to the Super Bowl. So you play out the year and you develop some of your young players. But what about the veteran players? They're going to be 1 year older next year. Now you're going to have to think about replacing them and coming in with young players and then letting them grow. You know, the ideal situation, you have a young team and they all grow at the same time. They all develop at the same time. As opposed to being very young in some positions, have veteran players who might be on the way out in others. You kind of want everything balanced in that regard. I don't know, is it quite that way with the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, I think, Jack, you got to have a core of vets there, right? Even in a transition, if you go back and you look at the Giants when they made their run, or you look at the Cowboys when they made their big run, there was always veterans there to kind of take these young guys under their wings and show them what professional football is about. Even when Jimmy Johnson came in with all them draft picks, there were still a lot of veterans in on the Dallas Cowboy team, if not to start, to at least show them what being a pro is. And a lot of times, if you have just a young team, it takes a long time for that to happen. So I don't necessarily agree with you there. I think there's got to be vets on a team to kind of show the young kids what being a pro is all about. But I do agree with the point that, these guys got to grow together. The young guys have got to be able to take over for the older guys. And there's got to be a nice switch on. It don't always work, right? Don't always work. You look at, teams that haven't won forever. And I think there's something lost there because if you don't have good veterans there, or winning veterans there, it's hard to teach the younger guys what you're supposed to do. And then you look at the Lions and you look at some of the teams that have had problems over the years, not being able to get back in the mix. I think that's part of the problem, Jack. I don't even know how you fix something like that. You've got to do what you say, just clear the board and just go. Because, if there's nobody to teach these guys how to win, then you might as well not even have the vets there. But anyway, so that's it for the locals, guys. Tonight's game, we got the Rams at the Seahawks. I think it's going to be a very interesting game. I think the Rams are just a little bit better than the Seahawks all around, but you always got Russell Wilson there to throw a touchdown when you least expect it. So should be a good game tonight, Jack.
Something should be said about having letdowns after you have a major game that you're looking forward to. The Rams had beaten the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a big game the week before losing to Arizona. And a lot of people were saying that could be a preview of the NFC Championship game, Buccaneers and Rams. And the Rams were psyched, and they got it done against the Buccaneers. So it's hard to keep that emotion at the same high level. So now they're playing Arizona the next week. And even though Arizona's unbeaten, they're not considered quite on a par with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as far as being a long-range threat. But Arizona sent a message. They're 4-0 right now. They're very quiet 4-0. People, when they're talking about who's going to go to the Super Bowl, Arizona's still not a consensus pick, but they may have sent out a powerful message against the Rams. And then again, maybe they're 4-0 team that's going to slack off when all is said and done, be like 11-5 and get bumped from the playoffs and maybe not be as dynamic. But right now, Arizona is really slipping under the radar as one of the better teams in the NFL.
Agree. And Byron Williams has said this on every show he's been on. He picked the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals
looking good at this point.
Yeah. Their defense has improved a lot, Jack. The Arizona Cardinals defense has improved a lot this year.
Well, leadership. Do you think getting J.J. Watt for the leadership factor in the locker room that he's maybe changed the culture a little bit for the better?
Yeah, that and a couple of the younger guys that looked good last year, they just didn't come into their own. So, the Cardinals have an explosive team. I would watch out for them. I think they're going to be there, and when it's all said and done, I think the Cardinals will have something to say on who goes to the Super Bowl. So, folks, we're coming down to the end of the show. Be sure to tune in tomorrow as we have on Byron Williams, we have on Keith Angle, we have on the Philly Sports Guy, and we have a special boxing guest, Ron Lipton, a famous referee, former boxer, who's been throughout boxing. He's been there almost all his life, Jack, and has called some really big fights, refs some really big fights, and we'll have him on tomorrow, folks. So stay tuned tomorrow, 8 to 10 a.m., same time, same channel. Join us for some more great Mac and Jack sports. Have a good one, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.